Welcome to It Begins With Us, the podcast about domestic violence abuse. It is our mission to help anyone in a domestic violence situation. We started this podcast
as a safe space for survivors to tell their stories.
Completely confidential.
We can disguise your voice.
You can be off camera, and we're here to listen. Let's get started. Welcome back to It Begins With Us. We are on episode 3 of our podcast for domestic violence survivors. And we have a guest today.
We have our guest. His name's Shyam. He's with Life Spark International. So tell us a little bit about your business, Shyam. Tell us what it is that you do and what your business does.
Okay. Well, thank you for inviting me. It's good to be here. Life Spark International is a 501c organization where we help human trafficking survivors. It's basically the aftercare thing that I'm involved in. And I started this in 2000. I think I would say officially I got things started in 2015, but I have been involved into this work since 2012. In 2015, there was a really big earthquake in Nepal, which, it was massive. So one of my friends got there to help people, and I got involved into those efforts. And as we were helping there, we realized that I got to know that a lot of girls went missing. I didn't really know why and who took them, but then that's where I became aware of this issue, human trafficking. And I think, and then we came back and we realized that, we can't put an end to this problem because it's such a big problem. It's a global issue. However, we wanted to, come up with some kind of a solution where we can assist people or prevent this. And the more and more I learned about it, I realized that not being educated or not having a good lifestyle, deprived lifestyle, was one of those reasons that people were being kidnapped. So we came back to India. That's where I'm from. And we started pre-primary schools for underprivileged children. These were first-generation learners. We opened schools for them, and our hope and goal was that we would educate them. Because in my experience, once I learned there was a girl who was, I think, 13 or 16, and she was kidnapped by giving a bus ticket, saying that this bus ticket will take you to Dubai from Nepal. If she would have been educated, she would know that she would have to get on a flight. She can't just get on a bus and get to Dubai. So education was something that, I got really involved and passionate about, because I thought that was one of the ways to prevent this issue.
I absolutely agree. Actually, Angelica and I were in a class in senior year, and we were told to do a paper on a certain topic, and there was all these things, listed that we could pick from. I had never heard of human trafficking, and I was almost 18 years old. I had heard of, drug trafficking, like that's a huge thing, but I had never heard of human trafficking. And obviously, like I've known since I was a kid, you got to be careful because girls get taken for sex, to prostitute them or other things. But there's a lot more that comes with trafficking, human trafficking. Like I found out that they don't just use people for sex, there's also they use them to stuff their insides with drugs or other illegal
there's
things.
Organ trafficking.
Yeah, organ trafficking.
For the cosmetic purpose, and all of that, yeah.
Or they sell little kids to people that want to buy kids that can't have kids. That's insane. There's so many different reasons why there's trafficking, and it's disgusting. And it's so sad.
Scary.
Yeah. And that was 15 years ago that I found out about this. And I don't think we hear about it, It's not education. It's not education that we learn. Like I said, we hear about drug trafficking all the time, but human trafficking, it's not talked about.
Well, and I think growing up here in a small town, it was never talked about because it would never happen here in Southeast Idaho or Idaho Falls. But I think with this new generation, it is happening so much more.
Yep.
Yeah.
In little towns like where we live.
I think what's interesting is, like, when people think about these big words like human trafficking or these heavy issues or domestic violence, we, I think, have an image in our mind, right? When I think of, every time I've asked people, when you hear the word human trafficking, what do you think, or what comes to your mind? And they would say, oh, a girl walking on the street and a van comes and just abducts them. When you think about domestic violence, someone with the scar, someone who's been wounded, right? But there is a lot more beyond that's defines these social issues.
Yeah, when I was with my first husband, I remember when he took me several times, to the doctor, and I was getting examined, and the sexual abuse was brought up. I was too scared to mention it, but they would make him get out, and they would ask me, like, "Are you safe? Are you okay? Like, is he hurting you?" Because I mean, the way that it looked, I can see why they were concerned for me, and they probably thought that that's what it was. I mean, he would rape me multiple times a day. So it probably didn't look like it was just one person. It probably looked like I was being raped by several people.
It's all right.
And so, yeah, it's scary. And they try to do a good job at that when you go to the hospital or to the doctors. But when you're scared for your life and you have no support, like, it's hard. It's hard to come out and say what's going on. But we got to know that there's resources out there. There's help. Hopefully, like, we can trust, our providers, and that we can get some help to get out of those situations.
So was that girl ever found? The
one that went to the buy? No. I was involved into rescuing other people, but not that one. I think what you just said about being aware, I feel like ever since I became aware of these issues, a lot of time people would ask me, what got you into this? Why did you even, start all of this? And I don't have a crazy story to share. I wasn't kidnapped. My wife or sisters weren't kidnapped. For me, it was the information, just being aware. Once I became aware, I felt like, I mean, there's a principle that, I think I heard long time back, and it fits really well how I got involved into this. So awareness, fear, and desire. So if you look at this into a different perspective, then it's information, emotion, and action. Because of the information that you just see, what kind of emotions are caused, and once you have those emotions, what are you going to do about it? Are you going to take action? And I think that's why information or being aware becomes so powerful, because it was just one time that I got aware, and then ever since I've been involved into efforts of helping these girls. Most of my work and experience have been in Nepal and India, so that's where I work. And here we're trying to do things, but I'm a full-time student here at BYU Idaho, so it's not as easy to give so much time. But last year we did take a bunch of professors from the university, some Googlers. I took them to Nepal and India, where we got to work with about like 50 traffic survivors.
Wow.
What was the youngest survivor you worked with?
I was just telling Maria, right? 6 years old. No. She was trafficked when she was 3. Maybe once, after this, I'll show you guys the image and all, her pictures. But she kept like hugging my wife, kept crying, and we all, like, everybody was sobbing there. It's not easy, it's heavy. But she was abducted when she was 3. Then she was thrown into brothels and raped multiple times by multiple people, and then she was rescued when she was 6. Wow. And a lot of these survivors are also domestic violence, victims, that just like husbands or their family members, because India and Nepal, they both are like male-dominating society. Sure. So the women are not, although things are changing, but for the most part, it's still, like women needs to just listen to the men there.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, and I bet they're very susceptible to those things, because they're trying to get out of a bad situation, and then they end up in a worse situation. Yeah.
That happens. I mean, yeah.
That's how I feel, with my parents. Like, I try to get out of the abusive relationship I had with my parents, and I ended up 2 days after I turned 18 getting married to the most abusive guy I've ever met.
So, this is interesting. There is actually a research, and I'm sure that you guys are aware since you're involved into human trafficking stuff. So there are about 54, 55% women or girl, they would end up marrying somebody who's an abusive person because of the kind of environment they were grown into. If you have a family where maybe a father or somebody was abusive, that becomes your normal. That's so when you find someone who's abusive for you, you have seen that and your mother has tolerated that, and you're like, oh, that's fine. I've seen that, and I know how to deal with it. But that's not the case. Once you become the victim, then it's hard to deal with people like that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's what I advocate a lot, and I know that Angelica tries to. We got matching tattoos when we went and watched the movie It Ends With Us. And my daughter, I didn't realize that my tattoo was showing, and they know every tattoo that I have. And they asked, oh, you got a new tattoo? And I was like, oh, yeah. And like, what does it mean? And I started explaining what it means. And I said, it's from this movie, and this is what happened in the movie. And my middle daughter, she goes, wow, that's crazy to think that my mom was married to somebody that was so abusive to her. She's so strong. I could never see nobody hitting her. And it made me feel so proud because she sees me as a strong person and that I don't give up and that nobody could ever hurt me, And so she thinks that I'm this person even though before I wasn't. And so it makes me really proud for her to look up to me and see that about me. And it makes me think she's not going to go through what I did,
Yeah.
So, and that's what, I talk to them a lot about this, and I hope, later that they'll listen to the podcast and that we have a great open relationship where we talk about these things, because I don't want them to go through the stuff that I did. I was strong, I left. There's days where I ask myself, how did I leave without no support, without no help, without anything?
And if I may ask you, for how long were you in that relationship?
I was almost for 3 years, but the first 2 years, I lived with my parents, so I wasn't married to him, and he only abused me one time right before I moved in with him, and I was married to him for 1 year. Yeah.
And was it hard for you to come out of that relationship?
Yes, because my parents wanted nothing to do with me. I didn't have anybody. I was also illegal. So my parents brought me here when I was 9 years old. So he would use that against me. So I couldn't get a job. Yeah, I couldn't get a job anywhere. I couldn't get a driver's license, anything basically. And he had me to himself. And he would use that. He'd say, if you turn me in, if you say anything, I will get your parents deported. And so,
wow.
Yeah. So it was really hard. And I left. I believed, the people that told me they would help me. I believed them, and they said, you, as much as even give her a smoke signal, we will put you in prison and you won't come out. And he listened. He didn't go back to attacking me or doing anything to me, but it was so scary to leave. For months, for years, I would have bad dreams. I still do once in a while, but it maybe happens once a year, every other year. But it's been 14 years since I left. And the first couple years, it was every day I would have bad dreams. I would wake up in nightmares that he was chasing me, that he came out to get me, that he would kill my other husband, my second husband, or that he would hurt my kids. It was so scary. And it's just crazy. Crazy the things.
Yeah, we still talk about that too to this day. We just talk about how hard it is after you leave, and then how much you doubt yourself. And she sent me a reel that was just was it even real? What I went through, was that real?
Or am I making it up for
attention?
Am I making
it up for attention? And when she sent that to me, and I was like, wow, I'm glad I'm not the only one that thinks that way. Because even there's times now with my kids that I'm like, did I say that? Was it real? Or
was it
I'll
that
see.
Bad?
Was it that bad? Was it that hurtful? But I I've been 4 years free from my situation, and I was with him for 15 years. I was with him since I was 14. So for me to grow up still and adapt to that, thinking that that's what I deserved and that's how relationships were, it wasn't until my 12-year-old, she's recently starting to like comb her hair and get ready, and just she's talking to me more. And I asked her, because she's been very huggable, like yesterday when I was like, oh my gosh, you're hugging me, like what is going on? She's like, nothing. And it was the first time in public that she's ever showed any type of affection towards me like that. Emotion. And she's just been opening up lately, and she's created herself a space, like a safe little TikTok for her to follow us now onto this journey, and to see her grow into that. And she's starting to open up, and she's like, Mom, she was like, I remember when Dad was really, really mean to you. I remember when Dad would lock us in our rooms and we could just hear you guys fighting and hear you get hurt. And the amount of times that I just wanted to wish that I couldn't hear nothing. Like it hurts your soul. And to try and talk to her about things like that. And sometimes I feel like I'm the over loving mom or the over worrying mom, because I'm like, who are you going with to the mall? Like, are their parents going to be there with you? Like, who's all going to be there? Like, and I feel like I'm overstepping, and I need to learn to let go, but I can't, because I am so scared for them. Because you're right. Like it's a pattern that you see. Yeah. Well, it's like what he said though, like you find people that, like what you see in the background, like you find people like that. So I don't want my kids going around trying to find somebody that's going to be a complete jerk and make them feel belittled. Like I worry about that all the time, because I saw my dad do that to my mom. I saw my dad hurt my mom. I saw, my mom throw my dad out of the car when we're moving, like it. And then I look at my relationship and I'm like, wow, it is like a pattern. Like you go out there and you find a partner that's the exact same way. Yeah. And so I fear for that for my kids, especially my daughter.
Mm-hmm. And see, I think that's probably where, like, I knew it wasn't okay and why I got out what I did, because my parents were abusive to me and my siblings, but they weren't abusive to each other. There was never any physical abuse. They yelled at each other a lot. There was a lot of bickering, but there was never any abuse with each other. Mm-hmm. So I knew that they had a somewhat healthy relationship. And I knew that wasn't healthy to what I was going through.
You guys, to the children.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm glad I never had kids with him, because I don't know what I would have done. Like, yeah.
No, it's never easy. I was talking to a friend of someone that I know. This person has recently gone through a divorce, was in this relationship for, I think, about, 8 years or 12 years. And I asked her, why did it take so long for you to get out of that? Was it the fear of society? Because the kind of society we come from.
Right.
One of my sisters had gone through also recently something extreme. And every time she tried to, seek help, she was turned back. She was saying, culturally, it's just not accepted. You go back to your husband regardless of how bad he is. You still need that manly figure in your life to exist, to kind of, to let people know that you exist, or for your own identity, you need a man. That's, how the society is. And she was like, no, I wasn't scared of society. And then she went back. She said, when I was growing up, I grew up in an abusive environment. So I did not realize that I started attracting toxic people because that's what I was around. That was normal for me. Yeah. And she said something really interesting. She said, when I would argue or fight with this guy, or like with someone who was decent, not abusive, and if they don't, counter that, if they don't like argue back or respond, then this would even stir me more. Why are you not fighting back? Because I'm used to that. Mm-hmm. I've seen, in my family happening that. So why are you not fighting? So she was like, all I was doing was attracting toxic people.
Right.
And it took time for her. It took therapies for her to understand that,
it's not healthy.
Yeah.
There's a lot of reasons why we don't leave. There's a lot of times it's financial, because they can't get out. A lot of times the women don't work, or they have a less paying job than the man. That wasn't my case. I was the one that worked. He didn't work. He would take all my money. So
you were also financially being abused.
Yeah, yes. But I also wasn't financially stuck because I didn't depend on him at the same time. And I knew we had money saved. So the day I left, like, I took all that money. It wasn't a lot. It was like $1,200. 14 years ago, that was a lot of money, you know? And so I was able to leave because I wasn't financially stuck to him. The other thing is, yes, society, we're scared of what people are going to say. Our religion. My parents were the first people to tell me I wasn't allowed to leave, that it was not okay. I told them, I went to them for advice a month before, and I told them, hey, like, this is what's going on. He cheats on me. He beats me. He is very mean to me. You know, I wasn't aware of all the abuse that he was doing to me, but I said, you know, like, it's not okay, and I need to leave. And the first thing they said, no, you're not. You married him. You wanted to marry him. Now you're stuck with him forever. And I didn't even have kids with him. Like, so, and they were not supportive at all. And the second time I was married, I had problems with my ex-husband, and I did have my 3 kids. You know, my kids were small. And I went to them again and I said, this is what's going on. Like, I really like your support. Please help me. Can I stay with you guys for at least 3 days so that he can see that I have support, that he's not allowed to do these things to me? And my dad said, no. Why do you want our support? You want to leave him, and then you're going to get with somebody else, and then you're going to get with somebody else after that, and then somebody else after that? And he said in unimaginable words a father says to a daughter. And I was just like, he's like, I wasn't okay with you leaving your first marriage. And I said, Dad, you would not see me right now if I hadn't left that relationship. You would have to go visit me at my grave. And he said nothing. He, like, as a father, I have 3 kids, and I would never, ever, turn my kids away if they needed the help.
Especially with something so serious and so scary, you would think that you would just jump right in front.
And my dad said, no, it's embarrassing. You've been married 2 times. That's embarrassing to us.
That's one big problem, I think, even where I work in these countries. You know, when people are rescued, so in a way people think, oh, they have been rescued, now they should be at a better place. But they are not accepted by societies. They're not accepted by families because now they have become dirty. You know, they have done something really bad. So if I accept you back after having been raped or, you know, being abused, then you're going to bring shame to me. So, you know, you're not welcome here. So they end up going from just, you know, from within 4 walls, which was a brothel, to another within 4 walls, you know, inside of 4 walls, which is just like an aftercare for them. And, you know, nothing really changes. So a lot of them ends up going back thinking at least we were getting something there, even if it was like $10 or $20, right? We were getting something. And because of their time being spent in you know, whatever time they spent in brothels, they don't really have any skill sets. And I feel like what you were talking about, a lot of these women, if they are not working, if they are just staying home, of course, you know, they lose confidence. You know, it's so scary for them to even appear for a job interview.
Right.
They don't know. They haven't done this for so many years, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, all of that makes it difficult.
Well, and probably those women feel accepted within those 4 walls of the brothel, right?
Yeah.
They have who's ever doing whatever to them, whether, I don't know, but they probably feel accepted, and so that's their safe spot.
Right.
And they think at least they were making something, right? They were making some money, you know, when they come to these, you know, aftercare places, you know, often, as I was saying, you know, these organizations rely on donations, and when they don't have enough, then like last year when we helped 2 of the organizations, and one of them reached out to me within 6 months, and they said, hey, we have 20 girls that needs to go to school and we don't have enough money, and if we don't get this money, they will be out of school for the entire year. So me and my friends, we raised some money, and, you know, we were able to help them get into the school. But that's what happens. Then they don't even get what at least they were getting back in brothels, you know.
Sure.
So they end up going back.
That's so sad.
Yeah.
That is so sad. I'm still stuck on the little girl.
I know.
I just cannot get that out of my head.
Yeah, my like skin just
Yeah.
Think about little Miss Cindy over there, and it just makes me so mad. Just
Yeah.
for anybody to look at a little toddler like that and just makes my stomach turn.
Did you guys watch that movie? Is Sound of Freedom?
Sound of
Is that-
Freedom.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So, story about that. Right before we flew out to the Dominican Republic for Khalil to go play baseball, bad idea. I went and watched that movie.
Oh no.
Took both my kids with me. No, actually, I don't think my son went. It was just Naya, my daughter. And the fear that I had after that movie, knowing I'm going to a foreign country, all I could think about was, oh my God, my daughter's light skin. She has blue eyes. She's beautiful. They're going to kidnap her and sell her and use her. And then I'm thinking about my son. And just the anxiety that I had the whole entire time we were there, anytime they were not in my sight, because all I could think about was we're so close to Cuba and all these other, countries.
Foreign countries, yeah.
They can just throw them on a boat and,
Yep, and they're gone.
and they're gone.
Yeah.
Because it can happen just like that. And
Yeah.
I'm sure that's how it is. I mean, it happened so fast,
Yeah.
I can imagine.
Yeah.
But God, that was such a good movie. But
It was,
do
yeah.
not watch it before you go to a foreign country.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've told, like, I don't cry during movies. I didn't cry during that movie, but I got so angry and it made me feel just so. I felt for that father when he went back to pick up his kids from modeling and they weren't there. Like that, it made my heart just drop to my stomach. And I was just like, we as parents, we think we're doing the best for our kids, that we're, giving them a better life. And then something like that can happen.
Yeah.
I just feel so much guilt.
And that's what I was talking about, right? The information that you receive, then you have those emotions, right? But what do you do with those emotions? Are you going to change? Are you going to, maybe educate others? And just like you guys, when I became aware of this, my wife back in India, she used to work for a bank, and she had to actually take the street. It's a legal, brothels, legal red light area. So she would have to take we have these cycle rickshaws. These are like, and she would have to take those every morning and evening front of those brothels. And my biggest fear was, because I was involved into some rescue operations, and the way these girls were hidden behind the walls, they were like, they broke the wall, put them behind, and then like they again cemented it so you won't even know what's behind these walls. So my biggest fear was like, what if one day my wife is kidnapped? I will never be able to find her.
Yeah, you're out here protecting others, but then your own family, they're...
And when I became father, that fear even grew. That I was like, no, we need to do something. And I think that's what really got me involved. I'm like, okay, if I can't change or stop this whole thing, at least I can make people aware, make them aware about what it is, what are the signs, how can you actually be safe? Like social media has made it even worse. A lot of people are just get abducted and get duped being on social media, and they're kidnapped. They're sold.
Yeah. I think that's a topic that we need to talk about a lot. We get called helicopter parents, and that we're too much because we're overprotective over our kids' devices. I don't let my kids have social media. My daughter's 12. She got in trouble. She was grounded from her tablet for 6 months because she downloaded Snapchat. Snapchat should not be for a 10-year-old, 11-year-old, 12-year-old.
Yep.
TikTok? No, absolutely not. Not even, Instagram or Facebook, none of them. And not only that, not only are they like in danger of getting trafficked, but it's all bullying. Like
It's
that's
so
a
bad.
huge thing. And
A lot of comparison happens there, right? You start comparing your life with others, and you get depressed.
right. Yeah.
You start feeling like, how your parents are not able to provide you what other parents are providing, and a lot of conflict happens there because of that. So it's not a safe place for them.
No.
It is okay to not let your kids be on social media. Like they can get mad at you all they want, but it's for their own good.
Yeah.
Like my 10-year-old, she gets mad at me because I won't let her, play these games and where they talk to other people.
Roblox.
Yeah.
Yes. There was one with the little red dude and blue dude. I don't remember what it was called, but they were playing it, and my oldest, she was 10, and she goes, "Mom, look, I'm talking to this kid from Australia."
Yeah.
And I was like,
Well, and a lot of those,
Yeah.
and it's crazy though, because a lot of those like background sceneries I was looking at are like brothels. The red light buildings, they have the red light in the corner. You're walking, their little guys are walking down the road, and there's, the red light hotel or whatever. And little kids are playing this. So what is that putting into them? Like, oh, that would be a fun place to go.
Yeah.
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 Thank God we don't have them here, but
Yeah. Yeah. My 10-year-old comes home a lot, and like in her old school when we were in Blackfoot, there's all this drama of all these kids. Like, well, she posted this TikTok and it was talking about us, and they were in the office, and I said, that is why you're not allowed on social media. That is why we don't do that. It's to protect them. Like, and it's not being mean. It's not. I mean, we got to be better as parents, I think. Like, we do. Because even I get distracted on my phone or my work or whatever, and I'm not watching everything they're doing a lot of times. And yeah, I feel guilty for it, and I do need to do better. But sometimes I'm like, gosh, like, why do parents think it's okay to let them, be on all these things? They're not missing out.
No. But then you hear all these stories too lately in our area, about, the ladies following women and children in the mall, or, in the parking lots, or even at Walmart, or when I went to Target and somebody was recording, and I'm like, what is happening? Like, it's and I have not taken my kids at all in public since that camera incident in Target, because I'm like, I don't want them to get kidnapped. Like,
Well, what happened? Was someone recording?
yeah, so I was at Target, and I went to go look at the new Stanley cups, because they had some really cute colors, and I turned around and there's a camera or somebody's phone recording. It was like tied around their little pole, like, so it was hidden, but it was recording for over an hour. So I immediately went and I told, one of the workers, I'm like, hey, somebody's recording. It's been recording for over an hour, and it's in the, like, right in the aisle where you can see so much. Yeah, and so
Wow.
I don't know what happened after that, but I'm like, after that, like, I'm like, I don't.
And that
I
was
want to take my kids anywhere.
Target.
But then that comes into, I don't know, I feel like that kind of ties into, now it puts a fear into you. Are you going to put that fear into your children? Like, you can't go out into public now because...
Well, I mean, I don't tell them, like, don't go to public, but I do tell them to watch their surroundings, watch who they're talking to, be very vigilant, like, make sure you take note of what you see that's suspicious. Like, I know that you're with your friends or with whoever, but you need to be more aware of your surroundings. You need to be able to pay attention, because if something were to happen and you were there, you need to be able to explain. But I even tell my kids, I'm like, the second you turn off your Find My iPhone, or the second you turn off 360, like, you're done. You're not getting your phone. You're not going anywhere. So, I mean, I feel like I'm kind of the mean parent that, like, tells them how the world is, and, like, scares them enough to just so that they don't make those mistakes. But
yeah, you have to. Yeah, what are your thoughts on that? Like, I don't know if you see on social media or Facebook about, these men recording women and children, or these women approaching these moms as they put their babies in the car. All these people and these stories that come out, it all ties back into human trafficking. Like, that's their first thought. What do you think about that?
So I think I feel like I'm learning a lot here. This is a foreign land for me, right?
Sure.
And in my opinion, I think as you were saying, I would do the same. If I see somebody recording and I don't know why, I would, of course, I would go confront them and would make my children aware. But I don't know if I have the answer for your question. But what I think we need to be very careful about social media uses for our children, because I was a part of course, I've been working with these non-profit organizations in Nepal, but I was also a part of a research, where we learned about how social media is. So what happens, there are stages, as you guys, if you guys, were to just research a little more, there are stages where they find somebody who's vulnerable, and our social media says a lot. When we are sad, we are just like openly putting it out,
Right.
or maybe when you have a breakup, you are just telling everybody. When you find a new boyfriend, you declare to the whole world, I'm in love or whatever, right? So there's so much information that you're giving. So these people, these traffickers, they have their eyes on, they are constantly looking for vulnerable people, someone who's going through an abuse, someone who's not happy with parents. Once they've identified those people, then they start grooming them, and there's another part before that grooming. They become friends, they gain their trust, and they start basically saying everything that this vulnerable person needs to hear. They start selling the dream to them, and then you don't even realize when they're kidnapped. So we have to be very careful of, how these guys are, how our children are using social media. And I would just do the same. I'm not going to let my children until they're like 15, But yeah, I think that's something that we need to be very, very careful. In fact, I know of a girl. We have worked with this organization. This girl was rescued and was trafficked again because of the social media. Because when she was rescued, so it's also like these traffickers, it hits their ego. Like, how were they able to escape from me, right? Sure. Or from us? So they go back. They try to find where did these people go. And this one of these survivors, she got on social media, started posting about her whereabouts. They found out, and she got kidnapped again.
Wow. And was she ever found again?
I don't think so.
Oh my gosh. That whole ego thing.
Yeah.
She got away once. She's not getting away again.
Oh, that's so scary.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think I have never been into a situation where I was abused, or I did grew up in really difficult circumstances. I had my father was really difficult, and but I won't say that I was abused. But the more and more I hear stories, one of my sisters recently went through something, and I realized how difficult it was for her to get out of that relationship because of the society, the cultural norms, and a lot of other things. So I think, you guys do this, so you know probably better than me, but what should they do? What is it that they should do to come out of that situation?
Yeah.
It's different for everybody.
Well, and I think we talked about it in one of the podcasts, because I personally have never been abused. So, I was telling them from outsiders, or even, I did have a family member who was physically abused, and us outsiders who've never been there, we ask, why don't you just leave?
Yeah, why do you stay?
There's the door, like, you have the free will to go, or, so why don't you just go? Mm-hmm. And like they said, it's such a mentality.
Yeah.
They get abused, and then their abusers the next day will give them gifts or tell them what they want to hear. Yeah. So then that makes them think they're going to change. It's going to be something new. Right.
So in our minds, they're like, they can go back to, how it first was in the beginning, when they were so sweet and they were so nice and they weren't rude and they weren't mean and they weren't abusive. So it's a very psychological path. Like I feel like.
And it's probably different, right, for every situation on leaving.
Yeah. I think it's, that mental strength to just know that you deserve better.
Yes.
That you are worth more than being with somebody that's abusive or mean to you. Yeah. Absolutely. There's always better out there.
Always.
I think, again, tying back to that whole information thing, right? I think being aware what is love and what not, love is not, right? Because I think love needs to feel safe. Love needs to feel like where you guys can meet at a common ground to grow together. Right. And I feel like if I go back to the experiences or the stories that I've heard from people that I know, it was the same thing. They would come back and say sorry. They would come back, bring something for them, and I think, and a lot of time, people who wants to leave I've also felt that they would feel guilty about not, I mean, guilty about it. What if I leave them? I am the one who's loyal. I am the one who's patient. What about my loyalty? And I feel like I think those are the things that people needs to really understand the difference. Okay, this is not love.
Yeah.
This does not, make me a person of, not having integrity if I have to leave this person.
Yeah.
Right.
So I think that being aware of, what is what becomes really important.
Yeah, I feel like there comes a point where you have to become selfish because it's either your life or his. You got to be able to be like, you know what? No, he can't take my life. Like for me, like that last time, like if my son didn't call the cops, I don't know if I would have been awake. Like it was that scary. And same with you, like with your first husband, like there could have been a time where you didn't wake up. And so you have to tell yourself, like that night when I finally left and I called your husband, like he called me and called me and called me and, oh, I'm going to kill myself. I'm going to hurt myself if you don't come back. Like, how can you be so selfish? Why are you taking my kids away? Like, look at what you're doing to them. You're harming them. You're taking them away from everything that they've ever known. Like, they're so good at telling you that it's your fault. And there came a point where I'm like, whatever, I'm done. I do it. I'm done hearing your words. I know you're not sorry. Like when he kicked my rib out of place and then 2 weeks later he's like, oh, we're going to Disneyland. Like, what?
Yeah, as if nothing happened.
Yeah, and then like my wrist, he fractured my wrist. And then so I, walking around in Disneyland with, the little cast on. And he's like, you need to take that off. It's embarrassing. I'm like, well, I still have to have it on.
Wow.
He's like, you need to take it off. It's embarrassing me. So I'm like, okay, well, we're from Idaho. I go, to California and it's hot. For me, it's hot and my body swells. He's like, why does your arm look like that? Well, you told me to take off my cast. So, but they're so good at like telling you all these crappy things, but you have to tell yourself, it's either you end my life or I leave. And at that point, I'm like, my kids are growing up. My kids are hearing everything. They know what's going on. My son had to call. Like, my son shouldn't have had to do that.
Yeah.
They should have never had to be put in that situation.
Yeah.
So you have to be selfish. You have to tell yourself that you're worth so much more. And even once you leave, and that's why it's so important that we took the social media route, because there was a lady that reached out. She doesn't have a car because he bought it for her. So she can't use it unless he's with her. She can't go anywhere. She can't work. She can't do anything. She's basically locked inside her house. Well, we're taking the social media approach because everybody has access to a device. Everybody has access to something like that. So if they can see that, they see what we're doing. We see that we're there for them, like victims, to opening this and becoming survivors and telling them, like, come find us. Like, we'll be here. So once we have our building and we're fully up and running, like, I really do hope and pray that the people that can't escape, when they find a way to, they know exactly where we're at. They know exactly where to come.
Yeah, as Maria was saying, there's help available. And I think, understanding that just physically being hit is not the only form of, being in a relationship that's abusive or you're domestically being abused. I think understanding that if you don't have access to money, right, or maybe there is a debt on your name and this person is doing, or you are being manipulated, you're being controlled. I think all those, right, are signs of those domestic violence. And I think, whoever in that situation, they need to understand that when you are being physically hit or sexually abused, that's not the only form, right, but everything else that you may be ignoring, could also be the sign. And I think the sooner you find out, sooner you become aware, the better it is for you.
Yeah. I have a question for you.
Yeah.
So I know that you're involved in this program, and you help all these organizations. What are you doing to be able to help them?
So what I have been involved in, so as I said, I work with nonprofits, other nonprofits. So, and the way I help them, of course, when I raise funds, so I give them, funds and all, we give them grants. But my goal is to be able to build solutions that they can implement to magnify their work. So when we go to India and Nepal, I take volunteers with me. These are all skilled people, come from a different walks of life, and before taking them, I coordinate with these nonprofits and say, tell me your top 5 challenges that you're facing that's making you slow down. That's basically not helping you, or not causing you not to have the impact that you want to. So they would give me those challenges or barriers. And then when we go there, we build solutions. And often these solutions are technical. Other times these are like just operational. I don't know how to raise funds. I don't have a website, or I keep losing my employees and I don't have enough staff. So we build solutions, whatever they say they need help with. So that's what I am doing.
Okay. Yeah.
And I think another thing that I really believe, as I've been saying, I'm really big on I think awareness was the one that really got me involved. Sure. So wherever I am, I try to do my part. I did a volunteer service a few years ago, and I read this quote. It says that leave your area stronger than you found. So I have really taken that as a principle, that wherever I am, so I'm going to leave that area, people that I meet, stronger than I found them.
That's awesome. And these energy drinks. So you and your friend just started this. Yes. Tell us a little bit more about them.
Well, this came out of frustration, I would say, and we've been working on this for like last 11 months. Me and my friend, he's the one that I got involved into, because of him, I got involved into this whole nonprofit work. And we are very passionate about women empowerment, human trafficking, all of that. But the challenge is like we always have to rely on people, have to do these fundraising campaigns and ask people to donate. Right. And yes, people have been very generous and we have received, but with COVID, things changed, you know.
Right. Yeah.
And so we're like, okay, how do we really solve this problem? Because we're still passionate, we still want to help. So him and I, we were talking, and we were like, let's just start a business, something where we can earn money from and then give the money to the girls. Mm-hmm. So that's the reason. And you could actually read it here. It says that's what our mission is. Also, these are energy drinks, but these are a little more than energy drinks. These are probiotics. So, healthy for your gut, has very less sugar. So just trying to, come up with some healthy alternative, because with most energy drinks, you start feeling jittery, and then you have your heartbeat is just going really fast because of the stuff in it. Right. So yeah, we're trying to keep them clean, healthy, and for a cause. So that's why they're here.
And they're available on TikTok right now?
Yes.
Only on TikTok.
Only on TikTok for now, yeah.
All you TikTok lovers.
Yeah. So if you want to support a great cause and have some energy, check out Eternal Life.
I'm links too.
Yes.
To this podcast so that people can stop by there and click on it and donate to your cause.
And you were saying Costco, right?
Yes, soon. We have what they call it, a road show. Yeah. So we're gonna have the tasting sessions for I think 2 weeks. So hopefully after that, if everything goes well, they give you a target. You have to make sure, and then if you can do that, then you're basically in.
We gotta once they're at Costco, we got it all.
Yeah. I know.
Thank you.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
They look. I'm not a energy drink
amazing
person, but they do look really good. And I want to try them so I can tell you guys, what they taste like and if they're good. It's kind of late, so I don't want to. It'll be up all night.
Right now. Well, and I just want to read what their it says, we're just a secret society hunting human traffickers until the heat death of the universe. By the time you finish this can, we'll have donated a portion of the cell to combat human trafficking. And then it says outlive human trafficking.
I love that.
I love this though. Definitely not a cult.
Yeah, we spent out of 11 months, just the 7 months were spent on designing or branding parts. So this is But thank you, for letting me talk about it. I know we're probably about to close, but I do want to just share something at the end. I think the only person that I really got to experience very close was my sister when she was going through things. And I'm sure that a lot of your listeners and viewers are I hope that they're not in the same situation, but if there is anyone, I realized, when you have a lot of fear and you don't know what help is available, what steps can I take, um, I think something that I want to suggest is whenever I have to take a hard decision, I imagine myself like 50 years, ahead of my time, or 30 years or 20 years. And I ask this to myself, will I look back and say, oh, I should have done that? And if my answer is yes, then
Sure.
I'm going to do it now so that I don't regret it later. So whoever is in that situation, ask this question to yourself, you imagine yourself 30 years from here, in future, and then ask this, should I have, taken that step and escaped or changed something? Because if you do that, not only you're changing things for yourself, but also for your children, and if you have children, being raised in that environment, because if you don't do it today, they could be one of those 54% children who's going to choose another abuser. So let's change that. The other thing that has really helped me is just writing journal. Just write your thoughts when you don't have anybody to talk and you don't know who to talk with, right? You don't know who to trust. I think your best friend could be a journal. Just write, because everything that you have been feeling so heavy about, you take it out and then you start feeling clear. Your mind become clear because you have taken that thing out.
Sure.
Right.
So write it, imagine yourself, in future. And I think the last thing would be just really, escape.
Yeah.
Yes.
Don't stay there.
Yeah.
Such
I actually do that often. I don't write it down, but on my Snapchat, I always record myself when I'm going through certain things, and I don't post it. I just keep it to myself. And then a year later, it pops up and I'm like, wow, like I went through all of that and I overcame it, And sometimes I will share what happened a year later, and it's just like, wow, it's empowering to me.
Yeah, I think journaling is very, and I think along with journaling, the manifestation, I'm really a big believer. I feel, this universe is in favor of you. And I think whatever you think, whatever you want, it will happen. And that is why it's important what you really want. So I think writing, journal, and really manifesting that I am out of this relationship. I'm living a happy, healthy life. And year or maybe months after, you're going to come back and look at this, and that has come true.
Yeah.
That's how most of my, I would say, desires and dreams have come true. So I think when you don't have anybody to talk, just start talking to your journal, start writing there.
Yeah.
I like
I
that.
like it too.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
good.
And another thing is, like, we can't make people change. We need to stop, like, with that mentality that we can make people
fix them.
change.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's another thing, like, sometimes that gets us stuck, that we stay there over and over because we're gonna help them change. They're gonna get better. They're not gonna continue doing this to me. So we can't. Unfortunately, people are built that way. I mean, people do change, but it doesn't happen fast.
Yeah, it's not overnight.
And it has to be on their terms. We can't make people change.
Yeah.
So understanding that.
There's a really good book. I'm sorry if we're going over time. Well, I will stop talking.
No, you're fine.
good.
There's a really good book. It's called Good Boundaries and Goodbyes. Outstanding book. And I feel like I think we are not taught the concept of setting boundaries. We give too much access to people in our life without telling them what you can do and what you cannot, right?
Yeah.
Right.
It's like when you try to get into a computer, admin has special privileges than the other user.
Yeah.
So I feel like we somehow ends up making everybody admin of our system,
Yeah.
our life, right?
Yep.
Give
'Cause we feel bad.
Yeah.
We feel
Well,
bad.
I think it starts so young.
Yeah.
Yes.
So young. It starts in school with circle of friends. There's always that ringleader who has access to everybody's life within that circle. And gosh, that is so true.
In this book, this author talks about, I love this book, and I did not realize this author was Christian, so there's a lot of scripture references too, and she says that, God never allows us to violate any boundaries, right? Or he does not want us, so why do we allow people to violate our boundaries? So setting boundaries, especially in the beginning, when you see a little sign of someone is has done something today, don't just let it go. It's okay. He loves me, that's fine. Maybe he was angry or she was angry. Do not let that happen. There's a really good movie. It's a Bollywood movie. It's called Thappad, which means slap. It's a story about a woman who was slapped in a party, in front of everybody. And coming from the society that I come from, it's normal. I was beaten up, like my parents would just beat me up. And so, for women to, for them to being abused or being tortured, it was just normal. So when I was watching this movie, I knew a lot of people, a lot of friends that I had. They were like, oh, she's making a big issue of that. It was just one slap. And he was angry. And I'm like, but she did put a boundary. She's like, she divorced that guy. So, and again, setting boundaries doesn't always have to do with like abandoning people or getting out of there, but just letting people know that they cannot come and hurt you. There has to be,
there's no more.
There has to be a line,
Yeah. Yep.
So I think, that's important too. And it needs to start from a really early age.
Absolutely.
That's the book that I'm going to have my children read.
Yes.
What was it called
It's
again?
called Good Boundaries and Goodbyes.
Good boundaries and goodbyes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll have to have. Yeah, I read that.
Goodbyes or good boundaries, something like that.
She's like, thanks, Mom.
I know. Well, I mean, she's 16 and
Right.
she's been having, and it's actually been really hard for me because I have always taught my kids, you are kind to everybody.
Yeah.
I mean, if they're mean to you, it's maybe they're just having a bad day.
Right.
And now that she's older, she's having to set boundaries, and she has lost a lot of good friends. Well, she thought we're good friends through that process, and it's hard on a mama's heart because being a teenager and setting those boundaries, other teenagers don't like that.
Right.
No.
Yeah.
So then they're gone forever
Yeah.
and they don't like you.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, in this book, this author talks about, we say, okay, the commandment that God has given is like love God and love your neighbor, love one another, right?
yeah.
But again, love has to, it needs to feel safe. You cannot just, that's what the author says, those are her words, like you cannot enable bad behavior in the name of love. You cannot feel guilty for setting boundaries.
Yeah.
You need to do that.
You shouldn't have to walk on eggshells.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
I think I didn't know what boundaries were, like how to set them until after my second divorce. And even then, I still I would say this is my boundary, but I'd still let people walk all over me and, break those boundaries because
Too much excess.
I thought saying it alone was enough, and it's not. You have to actually practice those boundaries. For me, one boundary was you don't get to meet my kids until I'm ready.
Yep.
And, this person started coming around without my permission around my kids. And I felt bad because I felt like, I don't want to be mean. I don't want to make him feel uncomfortable. I don't want to make him feel like he's not welcome here.
Yeah.
And that wasn't okay.
Mm-hmm.
I said, you're not allowed to meet my kids, until I'm ready. And he just kept coming in and getting closer, and that wasn't okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I regret that now, but now I know.
Yeah.
I know what my boundaries are, and I set them, and I don't let people walk all over them.
I think that's such an important principle because it's not just about romantic relationships. It's about colleagues at work, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's about friends in
Yes.
school, everywhere.
And your parents
And your
as
Your
well.
parents, your
Mhm.
in-laws,
Yes.
your
Family.
siblings. I think
Yeah.
for everyone.
Yeah. Yep.
But I love that saying, the too much access.
Mhm.
Don't allow too much access.
Mhm.
I like it too.
Yeah.
Such a
I
good.
really like that.
Yeah.
Well, thank you
Yeah.
so much.
Thank you
I've been
so
so
much,
excited
Shyam.
for this
I know
podcast.
we've been looking forward to it. We're always texting
Thank
like
you
I'm
for
so
having me.
excited.
This was fun. I don't do this. I'm never think I feel like I'm not good enough for things like this, but I really enjoyed this conversation. So thank you for
Good.
having me.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I felt like that the first couple. I'm like, I'm not speaking.
She's like, I'm not talking.
She actually sat over there and
Yeah.
wouldn't
The
join
first
in
time.
the conversation. So we're
And now
glad.
it's fun.
Yeah, we're glad that
It's been fun.
she's joining us. I'm glad you
Yes.
joined us.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I think this tied in a lot with what we're doing, our goal.
Yep.
And so we're excited to have you.
Thank you guys. Thank you for sharing your
thank you.
stories, doing what you're doing, because that's what's going to change, things. It may not completely,
Right.
solve the problem, but more people would hear about it, they're going to get courage. So thank you for being vulnerable.
Yes,
Thank
thank
you.
you.
That's where
Well, thank
new
you for
things
doing
begins.
what you're doing.
Yes.
Because it's becoming, unfortunately, bigger and bigger and bigger.
Yeah. Yes.
So you're doing amazing stuff
Absolutely.
as well. So thank you.
Okay. Thank you, guys.
Well, this was episode 3 of It Begins With Us, and thank you guys for joining again.
Yeah, see you
Have
next
a
time.
good night.
Next time.
Bye.
It Begins With Us is a supporting podcast for 1614 Revival Foundation.
Please leave us a 5-star rating and review wherever possible. That really helps the show reach more people.
You can follow us on social media. The links are in the show notes. Do not hesitate to reach out. See you next time.